right, everybody, welcome back to another episode of Conscious Consumption. My guest again this week is Michael Rasley, my longtime buddy, and we're going to hopefully kind of be picking up more or less where we left off last time, talking about digital and dopamine detoxing. Rasley, how's it going? How's the travels?
It's going well. I'm in Kuala Lumpur right now, and I think you know this, but I'm also the proud owner of the web domain digitaldetoxcourse.com, which I haven't done anything with yet. Get at
That's
me if
news
you
to
want to
me.
purchase. Really?
That's
I didn't
news.
tell you
Yeah.
this.
Mm-mm.
I think I've had it for maybe 12 years or so because I've had this constant problem with needing to set my phone down and being overstimulated. So yes, now you know.
That's probably got a pretty hefty price tag on it by now, right? I would think. I mean, that's definitely a buzzword, isn't it?
Yeah, I think so. I think on there, I want to say it was like $1,000 or something like that.
Okay.
One, because I have it set up on GoDaddy's auction site, and I want to say it's around 1,000 that it would sell for. But
Oh, so you have it
I don't think I would
listed.
even sell. Yeah, I don't think I would even sell it for that. But
Yeah, you got to hold.
yeah, I think, and again, like I've had it since probably I want to say like 2013, 2014. I've had it so for 10 years because I've had this problem, and most of us I think have had problems with our smartphones since then, right?
Yeah.
Of this constant needing to just set it down for a while and having to be super conscious about it, and it at some point it's just taking over. Yeah, I mean. Fuck, when I was traveling yesterday or 2 days ago, I must have spent 10 hours on my phone. I'm not kidding, more than that, 12 hours. And I was doing stuff. It wasn't mindless consumption, but I was looking at music, this kind of stuff. And that's a lot of screen time. I don't give a shit who
Yeah.
you are. I mean, that's enough to give you some neck damage, you know?
Yeah. Well, and even if it's not just like you said, like mindless entertainment on Instagram or whatever, and you're using it in a functional way, especially when you're traveling to like look at maps and stake out restaurants that you want to eat at or whatever, it doesn't really matter. To me, it's just like just being on the screen itself is like has pretty detrimental effects or can have bad effects.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, it takes us out of our current environment. And one of the words that I really like for this is called being co-present. So what that means is like we're not actually present with the people that we're around. We're with like other people in the digital space. For instance, like even right now, if I was doing this talk in a public space, right, I'm being co-present with the other people around me, even if I don't know them. I'm still not present to them and the what's happening in the environment there.
Right. Right. Well, and I mean, even too, it's like, what is it? I think it's called like somatic empathy, where
Hmm.
it's like you give off the energy, even if it's subconscious or not, like you're still giving off an energy, and people pick up on that too. And it's like you can't really pick up on that if you're got your head down in your phone.
Yeah, for sure. That's actually something that I would say that I pride myself on and that I kind of come in and out of is that I have a lot of somatic empathy. Um, I also, to a fault, I would definitely say to some degree I'm hyper vigilant, and can really pick up on people's moods. And I also am very hyper aware of my own state, like when I'm super, out of it or whatever. And that's actually part of the stress or anxiety that I have because I'm worried about putting that out into the world,
Yep.
right? Um,
Yep. Well, and it
so
almost,
it's and the phone creates I would say at least 25% of my issues.
yep,
Period.
easily. Well, and the other thing too is like it kind of just makes it worse too. Like the more that you know that you're giving off that vibe, the more anxiety it causes and the more stronger it becomes, right? At least in my experience.
Yeah, yeah, it definitely can. That's for sure. And the biggest thing too is like especially if you have any type of generalized like anxiety, it's kind of like or social anxiety, sorry, social anxiety. Um, if you're in a weird state, feeling stressed and anxious, you can see um, typically how people move, whether that it's a sympathetic state, yeah. So people are
Right.
much more jerky in how they
Right.
move. They kind of walk fast. Their eyes are darting. Sometimes you will see their heads down, and it's just very clear that they're uncomfortable, and that's
Yeah.
that's not fun because when you know that other people can tell too, then it makes it that much worse, right? And you
Yep.
can't do anything about it. So, um,
Slouch posture and just fidgety and stuff. And then it's like you said, when other people around you are like that, it's almost like it carries over to you and you get the same way, you know? Or maybe if you're totally confident and comfortable with yourself, then you just don't want to be around that, you know?
exactly, exactly, and that's the not so fun part. And I think also, one of the things I know we wanted to talk about is escapism. And when in that state, in a public space, it's actually easier to be on a phone to some degree because then it is a form of escape from that, and I can be co-present and be safe with the people that I know that I am already safe with,
Yeah,
right? So it's this double-edged sword of have the phone. It helps kind of, but it makes things worse kind of because it takes away from the presence. I
right.
could just be with that and sit with that and then it will go away, right? But if I
Exactly.
avoid it, then it will just kind of come back with in full force. So
Yeah.
yeah,
Well,
it's
it makes it worse too, because it's like you're not facing like your fears and the discomfort, you know, and that's really the only way to do that, you know, is just remove all the crutches that you have and face the music, so to speak. But and I remember too, like when we first came back from Colombia, when we were going to work on the farm and we were in San Francisco, just after being in like Latin America for so long and like people just comfortable with themselves and able to leave the house without having a phone. How many people, when we were walking downtown San Francisco, just like as soon as you make eye contact, just like look back down at their phone? You know what I mean? It's like no self-confidence at all.
yeah, I mean, it was definitely different going from Colombia to there. Um, Yeah,
Well,
to be honest, I hadn't even really thought of it, but I definitely don't think that we really connected with most people around us then. And man, San Francisco, when we were there, it was kind of like a war zone in certain areas, that was the time that I stepped in human shit.
yeah,
And and man, it was just pretty, I don't know, man. That's not really a place I want to spend a lot of time. I
yeah,
honestly felt less safe in San Francisco than I think I did in Colombia.
absolutely. And I mean, sadly too, I think it's only gotten worse from there because that was what, like, I don't know, almost 5 years ago, for sure, four plus.
Yeah, I think we're pretty close to 5 here
Right.
coming up this fall.
Well, anyway, so you brought up escapism, and I think that's a good place kind of to start. So we talked about it, I think, last time. I don't know if you remember or not, but um, usually when you're using things to get out of the analog world, like digital crutches to get out of the analog world, it kind of more than just demonstrating how easily distracted you are, it kind of shows how there isn't something going right for you. Like either you haven't realized your full potential or you're living like out of sync with your belief system. But I also think that instead of it just being as a symptom for discontentment, escapism also is a vehicle for it. Like the more you're letting yourself be taken by all these like forms of stimulation, the less you're able to accomplish things that are meaningful to you. And the more that you do that, it's kind of a self-perpetuating cycle because if you can't get anything of significance accomplished, you're only going to be more distracted, and it's like it kind of is the whole
Right.
network like task switching thing where if you can't just sit down and focus for more than 15 minutes, there's really never any point where like you're going to have full mental clarity and you can really like reflect on whatever else and see the measures that you need to take in order to like get to the place you want to be, you know?
175%. I mean, 5 years ago, I sat down for basically 6, 7 hours and wrote out all of the things that I wanted in my life. Because I'd just finished up a health coaching course and I needed to take myself through the questions that I was going to be asking clients. And I had to sit there for hours on end thinking about these questions. And then I was writing, yeah. And I had been meditating a lot of the time. I had been taking time to rest and recover and to think things through. Um, I remember at that time writing, I wanted to quit tobacco. And fuck, I must have tried 1,000 times. And it's been, took me about 4 years, 3.5 years, but it finally happened. Yeah. But I had to sit down and really think and not network task switch. I didn't bring my phone. I left my phone at home. I went and sat in a little cubicle at a library for, I think, maybe 6 hours total and just shut myself in there. I left for
Hmm.
lunch and went to Chipotle. But yeah, the network switching thing is the biggest killer of any uh, project of any long form activity really that
Hmm.
takes more than, yeah, I think even 15 minutes, yeah, as a base. But I think anything that's of worthwhile, of worth, like really to create something, you need 2, 3 hours as a base. And that's like a rough draft of uninterrupted thought.
Right. Right. Well, and two, also like the less you're able to do that, and you have all these things like on the periphery of your mind, like it kind of reminds me of something that we talked about last time where you just were like, I don't know the last time I was able to just sit down and meditate for like, 15 minutes or whatever. Um, but like, the goal is kind of like to just be able to make everything you're doing in meditation, no matter if it's just like doing the dishes or like cooking or whatever else. And it's if you're like fucking with the music and trying to like do whatever else, it makes it impossible to have one pointed focus on a singular activity and be able to like see that as a meditation, you know?
100%. 100%. Yeah, I mean, you need to be able to, like, for instance, when you're walking, do you feel your feet, right? Or are you
Right.
just, do you even know how fast you're walking? Are you aware that you're stomping when you're walking? How heavy are your footsteps? Um, I think so much of our energy is just in swirling around inside of our heads
Hmm.
that that we can't move that stuck energy down into our body, right? And most Americans, I think the issue is that first of all, they just don't move enough. And moving actually helps in yoga and Ayurveda, which is the sister science of yoga. There's specific twists and forward folds for calming the nervous system, yeah. And walking just in itself is a reciprocal movement, and it's right and left brain and it's rotating, it's getting all of our systems firing. And that's the biggest issue that I think most of the developed world has now is that we're just not getting enough movement. So the energy is just kind of stuck in our heads, right? It's coming out as depression or anxiety or I don't know what. I mean, you name it. It's probably caused from not moving enough. And then you have the over movers, right? Where that can also cause anxiety. And those people need to just sit,
Hmm.
right? And there's a Zen saying, you think you don't have 20 minutes to sit, you need to double it and take 40.
Yeah.
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 So, and it's not easy to do that. I saw in the notes for the show here that you had said something about how meditating and yoga can cause more psychosis. And I think we've talked about this before for sure. 100% it can cause more neurosis
Right.
if you don't really have grounding and a base from a good teacher. Um, and I do think, though, however, that Vipassana meditation is something that everyone should learn. And that's basically where you just focus on sitting and you focus on the breath coming in and out of the nostrils right at the base of the nostrils. So you don't focus on it coming in or out. It's just below the base of the nostrils. So you're always focused there and you keep drawing your attention back to that point. And that is what I think the biggest issue nowadays is that we don't have any concentration. We're never training the mind to concentrate. And the biggest issue with the internet and with our phones is the distraction to constantly checking. Like, how many conversations have you had where somebody didn't just check their phone to get an answer that they didn't know? Like, it
Hmm.
happens all the time and it fucks with the flow of the conversation. Like,
Right.
why do I care how many people are in this town? I don't really care that much. Like, let's keep the conversation flowing. But no, we
Yeah.
got to pause and yeah, there's, 3.2569 people and million people in Kuala Lumpur. I don't care, Um,
Right. Yeah, I think it's
and
just like,
yeah,
sorry.
no, go ahead.
I was just thinking too, it's like those urges happen to me all the time where I want to check something or whatever. And we kind of talked about this a little bit before too, but it's like almost a matter of just resisting that and bringing yourself back to the present, you know? Um, let's see. There was something that you said that I wanted to piggyback off of too. Yeah, and so again, like with the how was it you pronounce it? Vipassana?
Vipassana.
Vipassana meditation.
Hmm.
It's it sounds like to me it's kind of like incorporating both the body awareness and breath awareness in the meditation. And that's kind of what I try to do in like pretty much every activity that I'm doing is also be like conscious of my body position and the breath, you know? And again, when you have these other things that you're thinking of, like if you're listening to music or a podcast while you're simultaneously doing something else, it makes it extremely challenging to stay with the body and the breath too. And that's another reason I like to just like not have any other distraction. Like if I'm going to be listening to music, I want to just do that. Or if I want to be whatever, watching a show, I want to just be doing that while also simultaneously just keeping my focus on the body. And really, I try to deploy that practice in everything I do. You talked about mindful walking earlier, just being conscious of your motion and your feet touching the ground. Mindful eating is another huge one for me. I always used to watch YouTube videos or at the very least listen to a podcast with breakfast or while I was snacking. And eventually I finally listened to my intuitive intelligence and stopped doing that. And when I did, I realized how much better off I was, really just being able to appreciate the subtleties and flavor. And likewise, all of the content that you're consuming, when you make that your sole focus, you're so much better able to digest the information and absorb what you're taking in, as well as get insights that you probably would have missed if you were distracted by all these other things going on in your environment. But yeah, like you said, it all starts with the breath.
It's super important. The breath is everything. I mean, it's
Yeah.
literally the only way for us to consciously control our nervous system.
Yeah.
Period. There's no other conscious way to control our body to do to shift our nervous system besides maybe like a yoga posture, but even then, like to really activate and manipulate the tissues and all that stuff, you have to breathe.
Also, coming back to something you said too, just about like how beneficial the breath obviously is, but then just whatever, like qigong or yoga, even just like a standing meditation where you're bringing awareness to the body and the breath. Obviously, that can be really beneficial, but like you said, if you're already not in a good mental state, it could be detrimental if you don't know what you're doing. And um, I think coming back again to something we talked about last time was just how caffeine and coffee in particular, so like the super processed version, um, I liked a cup in the morning, but like my routine was to have a cup and then start doing like a Qigong practice, right? And yes, it makes you more alert and awake, but it also doesn't make you more calm and relaxed. It makes you alert and tensed, get that adrenaline pumping, and like doing that before going into an activity where I'm just trying to center myself and become calm and relaxed is like kind of a recipe for disaster because I'm doing all these poses which are challenging where the goal is to relax the body and the mind. And like when your mind's darting all over the place and your body's all tensed up, it's gonna have like a pretty detrimental effect. And I don't know if you've heard of chi deviation, but like I think I got that because I
G
just continued
deviation. Can you tell
chi
me more for one
deviation.
second?
It's like a mental disorder that results from incorrect qigong practice. So like by
Okay.
not using the right methods, it's essentially like getting you stuck further and further in your head instead of like getting rid of the symptoms that you have.
Yeah, definitely had that. Um, and I've had that from yoga and I've also had that from Qigong. And I think we had talked about that, not to get too far off the path here, but for sure caffeine, like I was drinking 2, 3 cups, right? And then trying to do Qigong and yoga to calm down, or just those two things in combination too. It's like this double high, yeah,
Hmm.
of it's almost like a speedball, right? Or whatever that's called. It's like meth and heroin kind of combined together, where it's this upper and a downer kind of, and then you're trying to find the calm point. And I've done it with tea before too, for sure, yoga and tea. Um, but yeah, I think it definitely can create more problems. And this again, I think comes back to dopamine too. It's a dopamine thing. And
Yep.
when I was looking at your notes, dopamine is more sympathetic. And that made, man, I had a huge click when I saw that in the notes. Dopamine is more sympathetic. It's more of an upper, right? And serotonin is more of like a chill, relaxed, parasympathetic rest and digest state. And I had never thought of that before. I just kind of thought they were both happy chemicals, kind of. And I had never ever thought that that's what it was. But if you look at an alpha male, right? You watch an alpha male. A true alpha will be super calm, right? He's got hella serotonin. He's, done a bunch of stuff. He's doing his work. He's in his power, right? He's probably got a couple of ladies around, something like this. That's serotonin, right? But the
Yep.
dopamine thing is more like a junkie, somebody. I thought of myself too because I was prescribed Adderall for years, right? And that is dopamine central for
Yep.
sure. I had that growing up, and that's what I've been chasing with coffee, with even just the feeling of not having that feeling of the kind of heightened state is makes me feel uncomfortable slightly.
Yep. And to me, I
Um,
think, like you said, I got that insight because I really had thought about it a lot. But it's like you said, it's chasing and seeking is dopamine, and to me, serotonin is contentment. You know, um, again, it's like when you are building something, like you said, you have that self-confidence and you're just comfortable being, you're calm, restful. It takes a lot to set you off versus dopamine, obviously, on the other hand, is like the sympathetic nervous system state where it's more associated with like um adrenaline and anxiety and looking for something.
yeah. Yeah. And I mean, that's the dopamine thing is to have that heightened state is a good thing, right? Like, for instance, let's say I find a berry, okay, and I'm starving. to have that, oh, I found a berry, I need to find more, and I'm super stoked. That's a good thing, right?
Mm-hmm.
That's like really, really good. I'm going, like, let's go. And I'm looking for the next one, right? But as far as like tapping a phone screen and likes and all this stuff, it does nothing for us now, right? We don't actually get any any analog benefit, and even digital, right? But it's a trained pattern, right? It's like the rat that what was it that they were hitting? It was like a thing that stimulated the brain. They would hit
Yeah,
on
just
this thing
yeah,
to the
like
point
press the
of death,
lever.
literally. Yeah,
Yeah,
they just press a lever until
for the
they just
cocaine,
stopped eating. I don't even think it was cocaine. I think it was that they
just like
had
sugar.
wires. It was
Oh,
no,
it
it
just
was
like
something wired
directly
into their
probed.
brain.
Yeah, it
Yeah,
just like was a
straight into
probe
the
directly in the
dopamine
brain.
center.
Yeah.
And they'd hit it, and they'd hit it, and then they'd just die. Yeah, because they just wanted nothing else. And I think that that's where we're at now. And that's, I mean, man, I'll tell you, I'm in the throes of it right now. I mean, definitely for sure being on my own. And I have a lot of good friends and girls that I've met lately. Um, and I'm chatting to everyone, yeah, and I'm staying in touch with people, but I'm not in my actual environment. I'm not actually here. I'm not present.
Mm-hmm.
And in some ways that's cool because I have a lot of things to look forward to. Um, and people that I'm going to see, and even like this phone call, sweet. You know, I could be talking to people in my house. Well, no, I'm here with my best friend on the phone, right? So there's benefits, but there's a massive trade-off of this false reality. And again, going back to social media, it does nothing except, I don't know what, maybe for dating, you can set it up so you can chat to people. I see, really, to be honest, I see no other benefit other than being able to communicate with people through the messaging thing, and being able to see what they're doing so that I can say, hey, you're here, cool. How is that? And I can learn more about the world. And for dating, right? I have my setup. I post mostly for to have like, here's my lifestyle, right? You can see my life. Do you want to come be a part of that? Right. That's
Mm-hmm.
my main thing. But beyond
Open
that, it does
invitation.
nothing for us.
Right. Like you said too, going back to like from an evolutionary biological standpoint, it was a great thing, but it's just we're like so overstimulated and oversaturated with dopamine now. It's just like not what it was intended to be used for at all. And again, like you also like you said, it's like yes, it's gonna make you maybe feel good, but it's gonna be short-lived feelings of pleasure versus the long-term feelings of contentment that come with serotonin, you know? So um I think that's one of I think my most recommended um routes to combat like a dopamine addiction or depression from dopamine addiction is to do what you can to shift from reliance on dopamine to building serotonin and getting, all of the things that are going to make you feel good from serotonin instead of dopamine. And I know you have to go pretty quick here, so maybe we can just table this and save that for next time and talk about like specific courses of action in order to combat or help someone who's really in the throes of like a dopamine addiction right now. Does that sound
Yeah,
good?
we can talk more, but I really want to just say a point really quickly about serotonin because we haven't
Yeah.
really like talked deeply about it and like what triggers it. And one of the main triggers of a good serotonin boost for someone is genuine human connection and acceptance into a social group. People on ecstasy, right? You see them hugging each other. They're like, they just want to hug everyone. They want to
Mm-hmm.
just be happy with people. And that's serotonin, right? So you can really see that. And the opposite that actually is short-lived serotonin is when you're watching somebody and judging them. You actually do get a serotonin boost from that, but it's not long-lived. And eventually what ends up happening is you do end up getting cortisol as a result. Because if you end up judging people all the time, right, it ends up in cortisol because then you're not engaging with people. You're not going to be accepted because they can sense the judgment, right?
Yeah.
Just one look at a person, you can often see,
Yep.
are they judging me? Are they open to talk? Right. And that is massive, right? If you're in the dopamine and you're, first of all, I don't know about you, but social media is a massive comparison platform. That's the other
Oh,
half of
for
what social
sure.
media does. Is it's a social, oh, look at his life, or like what a dick or something, like, oh, that bitch, she looks too good or whatever, or she doctors her pictures, right? It's this place where, it not
It
only are we tapping dopamine and hitting that button, we're actually taking away from our serotonin at the same time
yeah.
by
Well,
doing these short-term judgments.
yeah, for sure. I mean, it almost has the opposite effect. It sets you apart from someone and puts you in competition with them instead of being able to connect with them, you know, for sure.
Yeah. Yeah, and I think that it's really easy to do that, but it's also the opposite is just the messaging. I love to use message. I don't often, I check people's stories, but I don't really do it that much. Um, I especially people that I know that I'll compare myself to, I won't really tap into their stuff. I won't tap into their stories. Even girls that I like, I won't really do that. I won't really watch their stories because it's too I don't know, it's not really real. I'd rather just experience the person in real
Yeah,
life.
for sure.
Um,
The unadulterated
so
version,
yeah,
for
exactly. So
sure.
that's just my last 2 cents on that. But yeah, I'd love
Yeah.
to continue this conversation with you, Cam, at another
Yeah, for
time.
sure. Well, let me know when works for you, and it's been a pleasure to always, and good luck on the date.
Thanks, Cam. Talk to you soon.
All right, brother man. Yeah, I'll be in touch.